Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the super mysterious, not quite gut feeling, but apparently almost silent, so you only hear it once and then it's gone type of authority, and that is your splenic authority. There's a lot of confusion on the splenic authority, and it can be a little confusing to someone hearing for the first time that they need to listen to their spleen or that their inner authority is their spleen. I mean, I was never taught to trust my spleen exactly, so I don't blame anyone for the confusion, which is why by the end of this video, you'll learn the answers to the following questions. What is authority? What is splenic authority? And what does it look like in the body graph? What does splenic authority feel like? Plus, I'll share a few exercises for you to get more acquainted with your splenic authority and give you some personal lessons and tips for using your splenic authority in decision making. So if you enjoy this video and want to continue to learn and deepen your own understanding of human design, I'd be so grateful if you could show me some love, hit that like button, and subscribe to my channel. With that said, welcome back, beautiful souls. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Crystal Alfarero, and I'm a human design teacher and guide, and I'm also your fellow 1-3 splenic projector. Personally, when I found out that I had splenic authority, I was met with a lot of confusion because I just was never taught to lean into my spleen for decision making. But when I actually learned what that meant, I felt completely seen. I felt like I resonated with this, and especially as someone that never really experienced that gut feeling. So there was more confusion that I was kind of met with when I tried to figure out how to use it intentionally in my life. And so this roller coaster of learning how to work with my authority and learning how to connect to my intuition intentionally is really why I created this video. And so this video is especially for you if you have splenic authority or if you're a fellow human design reader, coach, or enthusiast and knows anyone who could benefit from this information. So sit tight and let's just dive in. So what is authority? Before we just dive right into splenic authority, I wanted to give a quick refresher on what authority is and why it's important. Authority is really how you're designed to make aligned decisions and therefore create aligned circumstances in your life. Specifically, your authority describes how you connect to your intuition or experience your intuition in order to gain clarity around your truth and what's aligned for you. It's through your authority that human design really teaches you and gives you the tools to make decisions despite what your logical mind is telling you. And ultimately, that leads us to choosing things that are in alignment to our highest good, to our higher self, and subsequently end up being the most fulfilling for us. So if you want to learn more about authority, including the 6 other types of authority, I do have another video for you, which I will leave down in the description below. But for now, I just wanted to clarify that authority is the tool that really allows us to connect to our intuition and truth in the way that we were uniquely made to, because not everyone experiences that gut feeling as their intuition. So what is splenic authority and what does it look like in the body graph? So if you have a spleen center defined in your chart with no sacral or emotional center defined, then you will have splenic authority. Basically, only projectors and manifestors can have this type of authority, and splenic authority is described in the definitive book of human design as an instantaneous resonance or recognition with something or someone and an inner knowing as to whether or not it is healthy for you. Honestly, sometimes when I read these books, I imagine a wise guru narrating the verbiage to me. I don't know if that's just me, but anyways, I personally like to describe splenic authority as receiving these instinctual, intuitive hits instantly and in the moment, as well as really just an inner knowing. And in other words, you really just know in the moment whether you want to do something or not. And the golden rule of splenic authority is that your truth is in the now. And they say that the splenic voice speaks softly and it does not repeat itself, but I don't want you to worry too much about this and feel like, oh my God, I've missed my opportunity to know, or, you've missed out on something, or you've missed out on hearing it, and now you're destined to make this bad decision. Because first of all, what's meant for you is yours. And second of all, when you know, you know. In other words, if you are hesitating on the spot, or if you're just not sure, it's typically a no or a just wait for later. Another thing that you should understand is that your truth will change from moment to moment, especially as you pick up and learn new information. So I found it's very common for people with splenic authority to really change their mind, which is why it's important to make a decision in the moment. In other words, when you're feeling empowered to do something, do it then. No matter the outcome, that's your truth in the moment, and that's what's correct for you. So what does splenic authority feel like? Personally, I've experienced my splenic authority either as a full body hell yeah, like there is zero doubt in my mind that I want to go out and do something. It's almost like an impulsiveness and inner knowing, but I find that the difference between impulse and intuition and that inner knowing is really that impulse is rooted in a state of fear and reacting based on that fear, whereas your splenic voice and your intuition is rooted in what's for your highest good, your highest self. And even if you might have fears that trickle in after the fact. For example, when I first decided to move to Spain in 2016, there was close to no thinking involved. I had recently gotten all my hours to qualify for my CPA, and I just knew at that time I was ready to quit my accounting firm. And I just had this inner urge to go live in Europe. I just knew accounting was not for me. I needed some kind of adventure. And at the time, it didn't make the most sense because I was in a 5-year relationship. I had a stable, decent paying job. I had maybe 10K in savings, which was not a significant amount if you kind of translate it into Canadian dollars. But anyways, I didn't have any job lined up in Spain. I knew no one really, but the thought of teaching English came up, and I saw many people had done it before, at least when I was doing my research online, and I'm like, yep, I'm doing that. And yeah, it was literally just a full body hell yeah, and a mix of nervousness and excitement at the same time. And I actually didn't tell anyone when I booked it. I didn't tell anyone anything. I just did it, and I felt this strong feeling of euphoria, almost like I was on drugs. And this decision literally changed the entire trajectory of my life. I've personally found that one of the keys to working with splenic authority is to know that there's just as much truth in the confusion and not knowing as there is in the hell yeah and the clarity. So in other words, like I mentioned earlier, if you're hesitating on the spot, or if you're really not sure, it's really a no, or just wait for later. Just like I did in this example, I just knew the time was right. So for anyone else out there with this splenic authority, how do you experience yours so far? And what does that kind of sensation, or what does that feeling feel like for you? So how can you get more acquainted with your splenic authority? Chances are you already make decisions unconsciously in this way. So the best way that I've found to see how my splenic authority worked for me is to really reflect back on previous decisions that you've made in order to get acquainted with it. So here are some journal questions to really get you started. For the best, most fulfilling decisions that you've made, what happened? What did you feel like? And how did you know to make this decision? For the regretful decisions that you've made, again, what happened? What did you feel like? And how did you know to make this decision? And start observing what happens when you're faced with any decision. Do you just know? What happens when you're unsure? So how can you start using your splenic authority to make decisions? So now that you recognize what your splenic authority feels like, I'm going to share a few tips with you on how you can start to use your splenic authority and how to recognize if it's a good time or not to make a decision based on what I've experienced myself and also what my clients experience. And so just as a disclaimer, please take these tips with a grain of salt and ultimately trust what feels right for you. What I share with you is based on my experience with my splenic authority and is not meant to be in any way definite or prescriptive in what is guaranteed to be right for you. So with that said, here are my 3 tips. Tip number 1, the best time to make a decision is in the now. Remember, your truth is in the moment, and the best time to make a decision is in the now. And this can be when you feel inspired. It can be when someone asks you to do something, when someone presents you with an opportunity. Check back in with yourself. What are you feeling in that moment? Is it a rush of excitement? Then that is most likely a yes. Is it a rush of urgency, panic, fear, or confusion? Then that is probably a no. And typically you will just know in the moment if it's a hell yes. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if you hesitate on the spot or if you're unsure, it's probably not the best time to make a decision just yet. And so this typically means a no or a no, not right now. Tip number 2, if too much time has passed and you start to overthink, Don't make the decision yet. When you start to overthink and feelings of fear and doubt creep in, your mind is already taking over. Before you make a decision, clear your mind, meditate, do some breath work, go for a walk, and come back to it when your mind isn't buzzing until, asking yourself again. Tip number 3, if you end up trusting your spleen and the results aren't exactly what you'd hoped, sometimes I feel like it was just meant to be and there's something that you needed to learn first. If you thought you could trust your spleen but still regret a decision or it ended up causing you resistance and problems, please do not panic. What I usually do is I just ask myself, what was the lesson that I needed to learn from this experience? I don't believe that we're going to completely be able to avoid obstacles, especially since some experiences we enter are meant to teach us lessons. It's inevitable that we're going to be led to certain things that teach us these lessons, which I believe should be treated as a learning opportunity rather than getting stuck on just making that mistake. So that wraps up how you can start to intentionally use your splenic authority. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Anyways, if you're wanting to get that extra help to understand your own authority or design in depth and how all the different parts come together to create the unique story of you, I do offer one-to-one readings that include a 60-minute or 90-minute Zoom call plus a customized 35-page human design blueprint for your own learning and reflection that you can always use as a resource guide. And I'll leave the link and all of that information for you down in the description below. And that brings me to the end of this episode where we answered the following questions. What is authority? What is splenic authority? And what does it look like in the body graph? What does splenic authority feel like? Plus, I gave you a few exercises to start getting more acquainted with your spleen and tips for using your splenic authority in decision-making in your own life now. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you could show me some love, hit that like button, and subscribe to continue learning more about the wonderful human design system. So with that said, have an amazing day or evening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.